August 21, 1986. The moon was high over the northwest region of Cameroon. In the valley of Nyos, the day had been normal. Mothers had cooked evening meals. Children had fallen asleep to the sound of crickets. The village was at peace. But by 9 p.m. something shifted. A sound like a distant explosion echoed from the mountains. A low, guttural roar that most people ignored as thunder. They didn't know that the earth had just exhaled. And its breath was lethal. When the sun rose the next morning, the village was intact. The houses were standing. The trees were green. But there was a terrifying, heavy silence. A traveler walking into the village found a nightmare. He saw a man sitting on his porch, head tilted back as if napping. But the man was blue. He saw a woman clutching her infant, both frozen in a final embrace. 1,746 people. 3,500 livestock. In an instant, there were no wounds, no signs of a struggle, no blood. It was as if death had simply walked through the valley and touched everyone at once. This wasn't a war. This wasn't a plague. This was the mystery of Lake Nyos. A place the ancestors warned us about. A place science calls a killer, but the elders call a gateway. Today, we are peeling back the layers of a story that remains one of Africa's most forbidden archives. We are going beyond the headlines to find out. Did the village die of a natural disaster? Or was this a spiritual repossession? When the first survivors regained consciousness, they didn't wake up to a world they recognized. They woke up to a world of absolute, terrifying stillness. Ephraim Che, a local farmer, was one of the first to walk down into the valley. He describes a scene that feels like a $100 million horror movie. He didn't just find dead people. He found a world where the laws of nature had been deleted. He found a man still sitting on his motorcycle, perfectly balanced as if he had just stopped to check his tires. But the man was dead. He found families at the dinner table, spoons still in their hands. But it was the footprints that changed everything. Legend has it that when investigators reached the southern shore of Lake Nyos, they found thousands of footprints pressed into the mud. These weren't the tracks of people running away in a panic. These footprints were walking toward the water. Step by step. Deliberate. Hundreds of tracks leading into the depths of the lake. But not a single footprint leading back out. It was as if the entire village had been called by a voice only they could hear. A call to walk into the abyss. Then there was the smell. Some survivors reported a scent like gunpowder or rotten eggs. Others said they smelled nothing at all. Science would later argue about sulfur and carbon, but for the people of the highlands, that smell was the breath of the spirit. And then there was the selection. In some huts, every single person died except for one. In one house, a father and mother were taken, but their infant was found crying and perfectly healthy in their dead arms. How does a cloud of gas choose who to kill and who to spare with such surgical precision? How does it kill every fly and insect in the air, but leave the delicate petals of a flower untouched? The survivors felt they had been judged. They believed the lake had looked into their souls and decided who was worthy of staying in this world and who belonged to the next. But while the villagers looked to the heavens for answers, the world's greatest scientists were flying in with sensors and machines. They were about to offer a truth that was just as terrifying as any ghost story. They called it the Limnic Eruption. And they were about to prove that the water we drink can sometimes turn into a weapon. Think of Lake Nyos like a giant, pressurized bottle of soda. Deep beneath the lake bed, a pocket of magma leaks carbon dioxide into the water. In most lakes, the water turns over, and the gas escapes safely. But Nyos is different. It is a meromictic lake. Its layers do not mix. For centuries, the weight of the upper water acted like a cap on that soda bottle, trapping 1.6 million tons of gas at the bottom. Until August 21st. Something, perhaps a landslide or even just a heavy rain, disturbed that balance. The cap popped. In an instant, a massive column of water and foam shot 300 feet into the air, spawning a 70-foot tsunami that wiped the shore clean. But it wasn't the water that killed. It was what the water released. A cloud of pure carbon dioxide, 1.5 times heavier than air, spilled over the lake's rim. This explains why the oil lamps were still full of fuel but had gone out. The gas had choked the flames just as it choked the people. It explains the blue skin of the victims, a classic sign of asphyxiation. Science had solved the how. It was a geological freak accident. A lake overturn. Case closed. Because science cannot explain the blue light. It cannot explain why the gas followed paths that survivors say it shouldn't have. And it certainly can't explain why the lake, once blue, turned a deep blood red the very next morning. While the scientists packed their bags, the elders of the Bamenda Highlands were just beginning their own investigation. And they knew something the men in hazmat suits had completely ignored. To the men with the microscopes, the lake was a chemical equation. But to the people who have lived in these mountains for 10,000 years, the lake is a living, breathing entity. In the Bamenda Highlands, they don't call it Lake Nyos. They call it the Lake of the Ancestors. And they have a warning that has been passed down through generations. Never wake the water. On the morning after the disaster, the lake had changed. The once crystal blue water had turned a deep, rust-colored red, the color of old blood. Scientists will tell you it was iron oxidation from the lake bed. But the elders saw something else. They saw a lake that had just finished a feast. They speak of the Mami Wata and the spirits of the hidden depths. In local cosmology, the lake is a gateway to the spirit realm. Remember the footprints, the ones leading into the water. The elders say those people weren't running. They were being called. They were in a trance, walking toward the mother of the lake to return what was owed. Today, the government has placed pipes in the water to vent the gas. They think they have tamed the beast. They think a few metal tubes can prevent the next exhalation. But the locals who still live in the shadows of these hills won't go near the shore after dark. 40 years have passed since the valley of Nyos fell silent. Today, the area is officially a red zone. The government has banned permanent settlement here, fearing that the killer lake could wake up at any moment. But if you walk through the tall grass of the highlands today, you will find something unsettling. The vanishing village of Cameroon isn't just a tragedy of the past. It is a reminder that there are forces in this world that science can label, but never truly control. Whether it was a geological anomaly or a spiritual harvest, the result was the same. A village that was here 1 second, and became a memory the next. We are uncovering the stories they tried to bury. From the hidden crowns of the Congo to the screaming silences of the highlands. This is Africa Mystika. If you think a lake that kills is terrifying, you aren't ready for the Majaji, the secret dynasty of queens who control the rain with a single thought. They tried to hide our power, but we are bringing it into the light. Click right here to see the evidence of the woman who commands the sky. Subscribe to reclaim the truth.